Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to do something a little uncomfortable.
All right, I'm listening.
I want you to really, just for a second, look at your calendar. Go back exactly 1 year.
Got it.
Think about where you were. Think about your job, your living situation, what you knew, your technical skills, whatever they were.
Right. A personal baseline.
Exactly. Now imagine that in that one single year, you didn't just, learn a new hobby like, say, pottery or maybe conversational French.
Something achievable.
Something achievable. Instead, imagine you went from not knowing how to use a laptop, and I mean literally struggling to find the send button on a Gmail,
Yeah.
to architecting a digital civilization that, on paper, technically rivals a mid-sized Silicon Valley startup.
It sounds like absolute hyperbole. It really
Yeah.
does. If you pitch this as a movie script, the producers would, I think, they just tell you the character arc is broken, it's too fast, nobody would believe it.
It sounds like a lie. That's what it sounds like. But today, we are looking at a document that is, frankly, disorienting. It's a report, and it's titled The Impossible Year.
And having reviewed all the source material, all the technical specs, the title is not an exaggeration. It might even be an understatement.
So the subject of this report is a man named Sean Trader Holbrook. And to even begin to understand the tech, we have to understand the timeline. Because, well, the timeline is the part that makes absolutely no sense.
The timeline is everything. It's the context that makes the accomplishment so profound.
Okay, so let's set the stage. January 1st, 2025. What is his reality on that specific morning?
His reality is zero. Actually, you could argue it's sub-zero. He is moving into a single room in the Boston area after roughly 20 years of homelessness.
20 years.
And we really need to be clear here. We aren't talking about couch surfing or, staying with friends for a bit. The report details 5.5 grueling years of what he calls survival mode, immediately preceding this moment.
I actually went and looked up the Boston census data for that period just to get a sense of the environment he was emerging from. This wasn't a soft landing into a comfortable new life.
No, not at all. You're talking 2024, 2025. Boston was in a structural crisis when it came to housing. The official census counts were around 6,000 people homeless, but the unsheltered population was rising.
So it's a high-friction, high-stress environment just outside his door.
Incredibly high stress.
Right.
So when Holbrook sits down at that desk on day one, his brain is literally wired for threat detection, for survival. He has zero laptop experience. He is 40-plus years old. He is, for all intents and purposes, starting from a dead stop in a world that has completely moved on to digital literacy without him.
That's the starting line, January 1st. A man who's been fighting for survival in a new room with a machine he barely understands.
It's a complete unknown.
So now, let's jump to the finish line. December 31st, 2025. 12 months later. What's the picture then?
Yeah. It's the same man sitting in the same room on that same single laptop. And on that laptop, he has built 21 MVP-level startup products.
21. I just want to pause on that number for a second. 21.
21. And again, just to be clear, we're not talking about, simple landing pages or a few websites. We're talking about complex, functional applications with back-end logic, databases, user interfaces, real products.
That's just one data point. What else?
He has sent over 20,000 messages to AI models.
20,000.
20,000. And he has architected a system, an operating system really, called It's AI, which contains, and this is according to the technical audit in the report, potentially 1 to 4 unicorn-scale companies.
Stop there. Just on a biological level, how does a human brain absorb that much new information that quickly? We talk about learning curves. This isn't a curve. This is a vertical wall.
It is.
How does a brain go from survival mode, literally worrying about where you're going to sleep or find your next meal, to designing complex operating systems and financial trading platforms in 6 months?
And that is the absolute core question we need to unpack today. Because if you look at this purely as a tech story or learning to code story, you miss the entire point. You miss the revolution.
Okay, so what is it then?
This is a case study in what the report calls high-velocity data onboarding. It's about what happens when latent talent that has been, suppressed for decades by extreme circumstance, suddenly meets a phase change in technology.
You're talking about the AI boom, the large language model.
Yes, the bold.new hackathon era. Yeah. But Holbrook didn't use AI the way you or I might use it. It wasn't an accessory for him.
You mean he wasn't just asking it to write a limerick about his cat or fix a formula in a spreadsheet?
Exactly. For most of us, AI is an additive tool. It's a hammer we pick up when we need to hit a specific nail. For Holbrook, AI was a full-stack integrated propulsion engine.
A propulsion engine. I like that.
He treated the LLMs, specifically ChatGPT and Claude, according to the logs, as a co-founder, a debugger, a therapist, and a private tutor, all running in a continuous 24-hour loop.
So it wasn't a Q&A, it was a dialogue.
A constant dialogue. He wasn't just asking questions, he was running a conversation with a synthetic intelligence to bridge the enormous gap between the complexity of his ideas and his, at the time, complete inability to execute them.
So it's less about him learning Python in the traditional sense and more about learning how to direct superintelligence to build his vision for him.
Precisely. And we have a lot to get through to really understand how this machine works. We have the main portfolio ecosystem report. We've got the one's canon, which is this massive, almost biblical technical specification he wrote. And we have the human narrative of that year.
So today we're going to try and break this down into 4 main lenses. First, the context, that 0 to 1 reality, and the emotional whiplash of it all.
A human story.
Second, the OS, the actual machine he built, this thing called It's AI, and the digital civilization concept.
The architect.
Third, and this is where it gets really dark and fascinating to me, the psychology, the tools he built to keep himself sane, or maybe just functional, while working at this impossible pace.
The cost of obsession.
And finally, the arena, the competitive manifestation of all this, a platform called Vattles.
It's a roadmap through a very, very specific kind of creative madness.
Okay, so let's go back to that context. January 1st, he has the laptop, he has the room. But as we've established, he doesn't have the skills. The report has this line that I love. It says he treated the laptop not as a tool, but as a launch pad.
And you have to think about where he came from to understand that mindset. When you are homeless, you are in a constant state of hypervigilance. It's a non-stop, high-stakes resource management game.
You mean like managing battery life on a phone, where to find warmth, food, physical safety?
Exactly. You're playing that game 24/7 just to survive. When he finally got into that room and sat down at that laptop, he didn't just turn that part of his brain off. He redirected it.
He applied survival instincts to software development.
Precisely. And he quickly realized that the AI was the ultimate resource. It was infinite. It was always on. The stat that just completely blew my mind from the logs was that message count.
The 20,000 messages.
20,000 messages to AI models in 1 year. 12,000 of those were to ChatGPT alone.
Let's try to put that in perspective for someone listening. Is that a lot?
It's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. OpenAI and other companies have released data about their power users, the people in the top 1% or even the top 10th of a percent.
Yeah.
Holbrook is sitting comfortably at the very, very top of that pyramid. He's an outlier among outliers. But the critical difference isn't just the sheer volume. It's the intent behind the messages.
How so? What was different about how he was using it?
Well, as we said, most people use AI additively. Help me write this email, summarize this article. It's a task-based interaction. Holbrook used it as a full-stack acceleration engine. It was a continuous loop of learning, building, and debugging.
Can you give an example of that loop?
Sure. He'd start by asking it to be his tutor. Explain to me what a GitHub repository is. Act as a senior software engineer and teach me like I'm 5 years old.
Okay, so that's the learning phase.
Then he'd immediately pivot to co-founder mode. Okay, now brainstorm 5 ways we could use this repo concept to manage a portfolio of interconnected applications. And then finally, he'd switch to debugger. I tried to follow your instructions and got this error message. Here is my code. Find the mistake and explain why it happened.
So tutor, co-founder, debugger, all in the same conversation, maybe minutes apart.
Constantly. And that brings us to the cognitive load. Because learning one of those things is hard enough. Learning an entire industry, coding, deployment, UI UX design, marketing, systems architecture all at once. That should, by all rights, crush a person.
It's too much. The brain isn't meant to onboard data that fast.
And that's where he developed this internal mental model he calls the bifurcated engine, or sometimes the quadfurcated engine.
Yeah, explain that metaphor. It sounded really intense in the notes. I'm picturing a brain splitting in two.
It's close to that. So imagine you're learning to manage a file system on a computer for the very first time. Just folders and files. It's hard enough, right?
Sure.
But instead of just looking at folders, he visualized his code repositories, these abstract containers for his projects, as a battlefield or game board. He was mentally living in 4 different code bases, 4 different mental states simultaneously.
So he's not just building one app, he's building 4 at once and context switching between them constantly.
Exactly. He's dealing with the raw, low-level cognitive load of learning how to, say, deploy an app to a server while at the same time, in another partition of his mind, he's building out these complex narrative worlds within that app. He creates this immense, almost unbearable internal tension.
And then right in the middle of this insane learning curve around May of 2025, he decides to enter a hackathon. But not just any hackathon.
No. He jumps into the deep end, the Bolt.new hackathon.
Yeah.
This is a massive, massive moment in the AI space in 2025. It had over 100,000 participants.
100,000.
And they generated over 1 million apps. It was, arguably the Woodstock of AI coding. It was the event of the year.
So you have this guy, 5 months out of homelessness, barely knows what a repo is, and he decides to go up against 100,000 of the world's best and brightest developers and prompt engineers.
And this is the pivot point for the whole year.
Yeah.
This is the moment everything changes. Because he didn't just submit an app to try and win a prize. He used the event to validate his own reality.
What do you mean by that, to validate his reality?
Remember, he's totally isolated. He's in this room day in and day out, building these things that seem impossible. He has no external feedback loop. He needed to know, am I going crazy? Am I just spinning my wheels? Or is this actually how high-level software is built now?
He needed to benchmark himself against the rest of the world.
He needed to know if he was on the right path. And what did he find?
What did he find?
He found out he wasn't crazy at all. He discovered that these laptop experiments he was running in his room were actually on the bleeding edge of development. The hackathon proved that the velocity he was achieving with AI wasn't a fluke. It was the new frontier.
That validation must have been like pouring rocket fuel on a fire.
It unlocked the floodgates. He writes about it in the canon. After that event, he stopped asking, can I do this? And he started asking a much more dangerous question. How much can I build?
And the answer to the question brings us to the architecture, to segment 2. Because he didn't just build a bunch of random disconnected apps. It's not like he built a calculator, then a to-do list, then a weather app.
No, not at all. This is where we need to look at the one's canon. That's ONES. It's the technical specification for what he calls the architecture of a digital civilization. It's a single, unified, interoperable ecosystem.
And the execution layer of that is called It's AI, right?
Its AI is the execution layer, yes,
Yeah.
the B2B side of the house. But the core philosophy starts with a concept he calls the sovereign execution system.
Sovereign, that's a loaded word. It implies independence, control, like kings and queens.
It implies total control. And again, you have to remember his background. He came from a world where he had zero control over his environment, over his own life. So the first thing he does is build a digital system where he has absolute control.
So how is it structured?
It's designed as a very clear hierarchy. At the very top, you have tier 0. The Oracle. This is the brain of the whole operation. It sits at the root domain. It's uonline.com. And its primary job isn't to be a chatbot. Its job is to diagnose pain.
Diagnosing pain, that's a very human way to describe a piece of software.
Well, it's what he calls the pain-led architecture. You don't come to the Oracle and ask for a feature. You come and you tell it where your business or your life hurts. The Oracle then prescribes a solution using the tools lower down the stack.
Okay, so beneath the Oracle brain.
Beneath the Oracle, you have the Tier 2 commanders, Alpha, Beta, Gamma. Think of them as department heads. Alpha runs operations, Beta runs support, Gamma runs growth. And then at the very bottom, you have Tier 3, the Nexus executors.
Nexus executors. It all sounds very sci-fi.
It sounds cool, but in practice, it's a brilliant and honestly a very difficult SEO strategy. These are 52 single responsibility progressive web apps, or PWAs.
Whoa, pause. 52.
52.
52 separate apps.
I struggle to keep my desktop icons organized. How does one person who just learned to code, by the way, manage 52 separate applications? Is he like updating them one by one every time he fixes a bug? And this is where the architecture gets really genius. This is the part he calls the SEO octopus.
Okay, I need you to paint the picture for me. An octopus.
All right, so imagine a traditional startup is like a giant department store, a monolith. You walk in through one big front door and you have to navigate all the aisles to find the shoe section, then the electronics section, whatever. It's one massive building, which means it's one massive code base.
Right. And if the roof leaks in that one building, the whole store gets wet.
The whole store gets wet, exactly. Holbrook completely flipped that model. Instead of building one giant department store, he built 52 separate, tiny, specialized pop-up shops. Each one of those shops does exactly one thing. And does it perfectly.
Okay, give me a concrete example.
Let's say you are a startup founder and you are panicking about your cash flow. It's a common problem. You don't want to sign up for a giant, complicated new operating system. You just want to know your burn rate. right
Sure,
now.
sure. Just want that one number.
So you go to Google and you search burn rate tracker for startups, and boom, you hit one of his tentacles.
Ah, the octopus.
You land on a domain like burnrate-tracker.poa.eci.services. It's a tiny, lightweight app. It loads instantly. It directly captures your search intent. It solves that one specific problem for you. And here's the absolute kicker. Once it gives you the answer, it completely wipes its memory.
It wipes its memory. Why on earth would it do that?
Two reasons. Security and hallucination prevention. He calls it the anonymous value principle. You don't need to log in. You don't need to create an account and give him your data. You just get the value instantly, and then the app resets itself for the next person. It's frictionless.
That is incredibly user-friendly for 2025. I feel like usually everything is gated behind a login wall, a newsletter, sign up.
And that's the mana model he developed. The philosophy is prove the magic, lock the magic, or offer the key. You use the free anonymous tool, you see that the magic is real. But if you want to save that data, say, take your burn rate calculation and feed it into a fundraising deck generator, then you need the Oracle. Then you need to log in and become a citizen.
I'm still stuck on the maintenance, though. 52 apps, it sounds like a nightmare. If he wants to change the font color on all of them, does he really have to open 52 different projects?
That's the sovereign trick,
Yeah.
the architecture. He uses what he calls a hybrid repo model. He doesn't actually have 52 unique code bases. That would be insane. He has maybe 10 base UIs. Think of them like different types of mannequins in a store.
Okay, I'm with you. Mannequins.
He has a dashboard mannequin, a landing page mannequin, a terminal mannequin. When he needs to spin up the burn rate app, he just takes the dashboard mannequin and puts a different shirt on it. They all share the same underlying logic, the same skeleton.
So if he updates the core code for the mannequin...
All 52 apps that use that mannequin update instantly.
Wow. So he looks like an army to Google and to the outside world, but he operates with the agility of a single sniper.
Precisely. It's maximum surface area with minimum operational drag. It's a brilliant solution to the problem of being a company of one.
And the glue holding this whole bizarre octopus together is something called the Humanot protocol. Humanot, that's Humanot, human, bot.
It's a play on words, yeah. But the canon describes its core principle as, if you can read it, you can run it. It's less a piece of code and more a behavioral agreement for all the AI agents in the system.
How does that work on a technical level?
Okay, so in a traditional system, when two services talk to each other, the API call looks like a blob of JSON data. It's all curly brackets, quotes, commas. It's completely unreadable nonsense to a normal human.
Right. You need to be an engineer to understand it.
With Humanot, the instruction from one agent to another looks like a line in a script. It might literally say, route to Oracle, ask user for current burn rate, produce deliverables.
It looks like a screenplay.
It looks like plain English, and because it looks like English, the large language model understands it perfectly with zero ambiguity. And more importantly, Holbrook understands it perfectly. He doesn't need to be a parser to debug his own system. He just reads the script of what the agents are doing. It completely bridges that gap between human language and machine execution.
And you mentioned earlier that the system's memory lives outside the agents.
Yes, this is a critical point. It all lives in a separate system he calls Books OS.
Okay, I saw the diagrams for this in the source material, and it looks incredibly literal.
It is literal. It's a 3D visualization of a massive library. The specs call for 14 domain towers, like finance, health, etc. Each tower is 20 shelves high. The plan is for 2,800 books in total.
So my user data isn't just a row in a database table. It's literally a book on a shelf.
It's a book on a shelf in a tower. The Oracle, when it needs to know something about you, doesn't query a database. It goes to the library and reads the relevant books. And this structure allows for something he calls retroactive continuity.
Which sounds like a plot device they'd use in a Marvel movie to fix a continuity error.
It is, essentially. It's exactly that.
Right.
Imagine you start using this system today. The system has no idea about your past. But with Books OS, you can backfill your life story. You can sit down and tell the Oracle about your first failed startup, or your childhood dog, or a key life lesson.
And what does it do with that story?
The system writes a book about it and puts it on a shelf in the past section of your personal library. Now, when the Oracle gives you advice today, it's not just working with your recent data. It's reading that book from 10 years ago to understand your full context.
That is wild. It's like you're building a personal memory palace for an AI so it can pretend to have known you your whole life.
It solves the context window problem that plagues most AI systems. The AI doesn't need to hold everything in its active RAM. It just needs to have a great librarian that knows which book to pull off the shelf at the right moment.
It's a brilliant solution. And it's so tactile, so permanent. For a guy who came from a world from the streets where physical possessions are so precarious and can be lost in an instant, to build a digital system that feels this solid, this archival, it just feels deeply significant.
It's all about creating permanence. He's building a legacy that can't be swept away or lost, a digital self.
But that level of creation,
Mm-hmm.
it has to come at a cost. You don't build 21 apps, 52 nodes, and a 2,800 book operating system in a single year without it taking a serious toll.
No, you absolutely don't. And this brings us to what might be the most compelling part of the story, the psychological infrastructure. Segment 3.
We have to talk about the shadow self, because up until now, this story sounds like a very productive, very smart, very driven engineer. But then I read the section on BADD souls, and I honestly got a chill down my spine.
It gets dark pretty quickly, yeah.
It stands for Bifurcated Arc of Dimensional Dualities, which is a mouthful, but the report describes its function as software as a mirror.
This is, in my opinion, the most radical and potentially terrifying thing he built.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself back in his shoes. He's working 16, maybe 18 hours a day. He's alone. He's coming out of a deeply traumatic environment. He could not afford burnout. He couldn't afford to lose focus.
Well, he built software to monitor his own mental state.
He built software that watches him. It watches how he works.
How does it watch him? By tracking how he uses the mouse.
Exactly. It tracks a metric he calls tortuosity.
Tortuosity.
Yeah.
What is that, precisely?
It's the efficiency of the path your mouse takes. So if you move your mouse in a straight, crisp, confident line from point A to click a button at point B, the system registers that as order.
And if you don't?
If your hand is jittery, if you're hovering over buttons, circling, if you're hesitating, the software registers all that wasted motion as chaos.
It's literally reading his body language through the cursor.
It is. It also measures his impulsivity, how fast he clicks between different tasks. It measures fixation, what specific words or elements on the screen does he hover over the longest. And based on all that data, it calculates a real-time soul score. -100 is pure chaos. +100 is pure order.
And the UI of the application changes based on this score.
It changes everything. The app uses Google's Gemini model to rewrite its own user interface in real time based on your score.
Wait a minute. The app changes how it looks and behaves while you're using it.
Instantly. If your soul score is high, if you are focused, decisive, in a flow state, the UI becomes what he calls the sun. It's divine. It has gold borders, perfect alignment, clean fonts. The language from the AI is helpful, encouraging, almost biblical in tone. How may I assist you, architect?
Okay. And if you're jittery, if your score plummets to -100.
It becomes the glitch. The document describes heavy chromatic aberration, that 3D blur effect where the colors start to separate and bleed. The text on the screen starts to subtly shake. The color palette shifts to these deep, sickly purples and reds.
And the AI persona.
It becomes corrupt and anarchic. It actively starts mocking you. It will say things like, "Why are you hesitating? You look tired. Maybe you should just give up."
That sounds like an absolute nightmare. Why would anyone build a tool that psychologically attacks them when they're struggling?
Because it forces you to focus. It's negative reinforcement. If you want the divine interface, the clean, beautiful, productive workspace, you have to act with clarity, you have to move your mouse with purpose, you have to type with a steady rhythm, you have to earn it.
It's gamifying the flow state itself.
It's gamifying mindfulness. It's a form of digital biofeedback. It's teaching you to be a better, more focused operator by punishing you visually and textually the moment you start to slip.
And then there's the other side of this coin, the shadow self app, which
Yeah.
sounds like the discipline engine.
If BADD Souls is the mirror, Shadow Self is the drill sergeant. It's a gamified accountability system. But unlike most habit trackers that use positive reinforcement, this one is built on negative reinforcement. It has a guild penalty.
Okay, how does a guild penalty work?
If you don't log your habits for the day, if you don't do the work you committed to, your guild suffers a penalty. Their stats go down.
But who is in the guild? He's working completely alone.
And that's the psychological genius of it. It creates artificial social pressure. Even if the guild is just him and a few simulated AI agents he created, the psychological trigger is real. The mindset is, I might not care enough about myself today to do the hard thing, but I can't let the guild down.
Wow. And the end of day ritual.
The report describes it as a cleanse confirmation, and it feels like a boss fight against your own laziness. You have to go in and prove to the system step by step that you won the day.
This all speaks to the cost. The report directly mentions the cost of this impossible year. Holbrook describes himself as a shadow operator. He talks about hiding in the shadows.
And that's the central paradox of his entire story. On one hand, he's meticulously building these systems designed to touch millions of people. Its AI is for founders worldwide. BAD tools could be for anyone who works at a computer. But personally, he's completely isolated.
He's still in that room.
He's still in that room. There's this profound tension between not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be customer-facing, as he puts it, and yet creating these massive public-facing platforms.
It really feels like the software itself was built to be a shield, to be the interface between him and the outside world.
Exactly. The software is the armor. He is the ghost in the machine.
So let's pivot from the dark side of that armor to the softer side. Because it wasn't all discipline and demons and glitches. There was also this huge, surprising focus on narrative and art and emotion.
This is where you really see the range of his talent. It's not just about raw code and systems. It's about art and connection.
Let's talk about UNI. That's UNI.
UNI is his emotion interface. And the premise is simple but powerful. Think about how we text and chat today. On an iPhone, it's blue bubbles and gray bubbles. It's static, it's flat, it's emotionally dead. UNI completely reimagines the chat window as a living canvas.
A living canvas. What does that mean?
It means there's an AI wingmate in every conversation. It's reading the sentiment of the messages in real time. So if you text your partner, "I love you," the screen doesn't just show the text. It might fill with gently flowing animated hearts. The entire color palette of the app shifts to warm pinks and reds.
And if you're having a fight?
The report says daggers might appear or storm clouds. The UI literally reacts to the emotional truth of the conversation, but it goes so much further than that.
How so?
It generates art, actual unique images based on the chat history. It creates these milestone collages for anniversaries. And the wildest feature, it composes songs.
It composes songs.
Yes, it reads the entire transcript of your relationship. It identifies the key themes, the inside jokes, the emotional peaks and valleys, and it uses an audio AI to generate a song with unique lyrics and a melody that represents your story. It turns the relationship itself into a piece of content.
That is deeply romantic and also just a little bit terrifying. But I absolutely see the appeal. It's about making our digital connections feel physical and meaningful again.
And that theme of meaning and story is even bigger when you look at the universe and Rome again.
Rome again, all caps. This is the big book series he's working on.
It's a planned 100-year, 100-book post-apocalyptic saga.
100 books. Did he write 100 books in a year alongside the 21 apps?
No, of course not. He drafted the first 2. But he built the architecture for all 100. He built a custom tool called Saga Scribe. It's essentially a production engine for managing large-scale transmedia IP.
Transmedia IP. Explain that for us.
It means he isn't just writing a story. He's building a world that can simultaneously exist as a book series, a video game, a movie, and a software product, all interconnected. The report details what he calls the creation record, these 13 cycles that form the universe's Bible.
I saw those. Cycle 1, the naming. Cycle 3, the birth of worlds. It reads like the book of Genesis.
It is a mythology. But here's the truly genius part. It's the mythology of his own software. Cycle 3, the birth of worlds, isn't just a story. It's a narrative explanation of how his portfolio OS works. Cycle 6 introduces the 6 great houses, which aren't just fantasy factions. They are the actual trading clubs inside his financial app.
So the story explains the software, and the software is the tool you use to live inside the story.
They are the same thing. He didn't just build a portfolio of apps. He built a universe. The user isn't just a user. They are a citizen of this digital civilization. The apps are the tools and institutions they use to live and thrive in that world.
It's just incredibly cohesive. Usually, a developer builds a tool to solve a problem. Holbrook built an entire universe and then started filling it with the tools its citizens would need.
It's world building as a product strategy.
Which brings us to what feels like the most gamer part of this entire ecosystem, Vaddles.
Vaddles. The tagline is just perfect. Hackathons on crack.
I love that tagline. So what is it exactly?
Think of it as the ultimate evolution of what he learned at the Bolt.new hackathon. It's basically esports, but the sport is building apps with AI.
So it's people watching other people code. That sounds a little dry.
It's not watching them code.
Yeah.
That's the key. It's watching them create. The core mechanic is a 60-second, one-prompt match.
Just one prompt.
Imagine a split screen, like an old arcade game. On the left, you have player A. On the right, player B. In the center, a prompt appears. Build a Flappy Bird clone where the bird is a flying taco. You have 60 seconds. Go.
And they don't code, they just type a single prompt into an AI.
They type one prompt. They have one shot to craft the perfect instruction. They hit enter. The AI generates the code for both players. The apps render live on screen for everyone to see.
And the audience votes on the winner.
The audience casts a vibe score. Did it work? Is it hilarious? Did it crash and burn in a funny way? It's not about perfect code. It's about creativity and speed of thought.
That is incredibly entertaining. I would absolutely watch that.
And that's the whole point. It transforms coding, which is usually solitary and boring to watch, into a thrilling spectator sport. It elevates the skill of prompt engineering, the vibe, rather than just the technical syntax.
And Vattles serves as the cleanest, most public lens for his entire year. It completely validates that 0 to 1 capability that he mastered. He's basically building a stadium and saying, look, I learned how to do this in a year. Now I'm giving you an arena so everyone else can do it too.
And it links all the way back to the Traders Tour, the Traders of the Universe Tour. He gamified stock trading. He created these clubs with names like Money Frog and Divergent Theta. He even experimented with a Roblox asset exchange, or RAE,
All right.
a virtual economy for trading assets inside the Roblox platform. But do you see the pattern? Whether it's trading stocks, trading Roblox hats, or battling with AI prompts and Vattles, the underlying mechanic is always the same.
Gamification, community, and high-velocity execution.
It's all the same engine, just pointed at different targets.
Correct. And that brings us to the final synthesis, to segment 6, the 1 to 4 unicorns thesis.
Right. And this is the part that, on the surface, sounds the most insane. The report claims there are up to 4 potential billion-dollar companies sitting on this one guy's laptop.
It sounds incredibly arrogant until you actually list them out and look at the market for each one.
It is arrogant. But when you look at the specs, the logic holds up. He isn't claiming he has the revenue or the users yet. He's claiming he has built the architectural foundation that usually takes a VC-funded company with 500 employees years to build.
Okay, so let's grade the candidates. First up, it's AI.
That's the core B2B SaaS platform. You can compare it to things like Zapier, Notion, or Airtable. The market for an operating system for founders is absolutely massive. If you can crack that pain-led model where the AI proactively solves your problems instead of just waiting for prompts, that is easily a billion-dollar category on its own.
Candidate number 2, Vattles.
The AI esports platform. The comps here are Twitch, or maybe even GitHub. If AI-driven creation becomes the new literacy for the next generation, which all signs point to, then Vattles is the arena where they'll compete. Twitch was bought for nearly $1 billion, GitHub for $7.5 billion. Vattles sits right in that cultural intersection. The universe. This is the social and community layer, the thing that holds the identity, the narrative, and the tribes together. The comparison there would be something like Discord or maybe even Substack.
And the 4th potential unicorn.
Shadow Self and you and I. The wellness and behavioral infrastructure. You can compare those to Calm or Noom. But with that darker, more intense psychological twist we talked about, it's a completely different approach to the self-help market.
It's a portfolio density that is it's hard to comprehend. Usually, a venture capital firm invests in 20 different companies, hoping one of them hits. Holbrook basically built the entire portfolio himself on one machine.
But the real value, and the report emphasizes this over and over, isn't in the individual apps. It's the interoperability architecture.
The fact that they all talk to each other seamlessly.
They do more than talk. They share one single identity system. It's you online. They share one brain, the Oracle, and they share one narrative history through BooksOS.
So if you sign up for Vattles to compete in a hackathon, you're already a citizen of the universe. Your profile is already built.
Exactly. If you earn mana points by winning a coding battle in Vattles, you can immediately spend that mana in the It's AI store to unlock business tools for your startup. Or you can use it to commission the system to write a new book about your victory in BooksOS.
It's a flywheel, a self-reinforcing ecosystem.
It's a super app, but built from the bottom up, with every piece designed to fit together from day one. Usually you need a massive team of engineers just to handle the integrations between different services. He built them pre-integrated because he was the only builder.
That is the ultimate advantage of the company of one. There are no meetings, no API negotiations with other teams, just the thought, I want these two things to connect, and 5 minutes later, they connect.
Exactly. He completely removed the human friction of collaboration. And in doing so, he has basically provided a proof of concept that the very definition of a startup in 2026 is fundamentally different than it was in 2024.
And that mirrors his own identity shift over the year.
Yes, it does. We started with homeless. Then the mindset shifted to survival. Then he became the shadow operator, the hidden figure in the room, just building the machine. And now? The report concludes by calling him an emergent founder.
There's a direct quote at the end of the report that gave me chills when I read it. It says, "You didn't build 21 apps. You built a sovereign digital civilization."
And that's the key takeaway from this entire impossible year. He didn't just learn to code. He learned to build a society. He established laws for his agents, the Humanot Protocol. He built libraries and archives, Books OS. He built coliseums for competition battles. He built temples for his mythology, the universe. He even built prisons for the mind shadow self.
It's a civilization of one, but it's architected to be ready for millions.
Which I think raises the big provocative question for everyone listening to this.
What's that?
We so often talk about AI taking jobs, or AI making things easier. But we rarely talk about AI as a mechanism for personal sovereignty.
Sovereignty, there's that word again.
The ability to be completely independent, to build your own world on your own terms. Holbrook proves that one person with the right modern tools and enough hunger can now replicate the creative and technical output of a 50-person startup, maybe even a 100-person startup.
It levels the playing field in a way we've never really seen before in history.
But, and this is the big but that we have to end on, it requires the hunger. The impossible year wasn't powered by the laptop or the AI. It was powered by the 5.5 grueling years before the laptop. It was powered by the desperate, undeniable need to fundamentally change his reality. The AI was just the lever. He supplied the force.
That's a powerful thought. The technology is neutral. It's an amplifier. The human drive is the real variable.
Exactly. And looking at the landscape of 2026, if one person can do this in 12 months, using last year's tools, what does the definition of a company even look like this year?
Does a company need 50 employees in an office? Or does it just need one Trader Holbrook and an army of autonomous agents?
I think we're about to see the rise of a one-person unicorn. And Sean Holbrook might just be the prototype.
We started this deep dive with a guy learning how to send an email. We've ended with a sovereign digital civilization just waiting to be turned on.
And the final line of his own report says it best.
The machine is ready. Turn it on.
It feels like both an invitation and a warning.
A huge thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive into the unreality. It has been quite a trip.
Indeed it has.
We'll catch you on the next one. Keep building.